hot dogs out across the crowd.
Yeah, I haven't hit the hot dog spot yet, but
That would have been a sight to see. Could you imagine? And in the 70s doing that? That's incredible.
So back then, they were doing some like simulated sex acts on stage. I mean, it got to that point, and it's dialed back a little bit.
Yeah.
So it was crazier back then than it is now.
Well, I think it's more differentiated. I feel like, a lot of more like performative porn kind of and burlesque sort of blended into each other. And they're pretty separate now. You know, like one thing we always tell boot campers is like, don't for a second think that you're not a stripper. Like you are absolutely a stripper. Do not, because people come in with like some sort of like shitty attitude, right? Like, oh no, we do burlesque. We're not strippers. And it's like,
oh, like a superiority thing.
Right.
Okay.
Totally. And we're like,
you are taking your clothes off for money.
Yeah.
Might not be as much money,
right.
but.
Well, and that's what I tell them is I'm like, look, if you're working in a strip club, like you will spend $50 on a costume and you will come home with $500 in tips. When you're doing burlesque, you will spend $500 on a costume and you will come home with $50 in tips. And that's the only difference between the two. Because I guess, I don't know, I haven't been to Tip Top in years. That's really depressing. I think they have to do pasties now too.
Oh, do they really?
Yeah, if you're going to leave the pole. I think if you're touching, because they have the liquor license.
Oh.
So, I don't know, last strip club I was in was Paris.
No pasties?
That was a good time. Like flashback into the distance. Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure the Tip Top has to do. We should know this.
I think we had a couple girls that came through boot camp.
Who were dancers
the last time, and they said they did pasties there too.
Yeah, okay, I do actually remember that now. So, yeah.
Well, I feel like for the 70s too, it's almost like you're pushing the boundary to see how far you can go. You know what I mean?
That was very like hustler era.
Yeah.
And just kind of like, you know, deep throat and like porn theaters. It was just sort of a different, and I mean, we definitely push things now. I mean, that's one thing I really like about burlesque is how much you can push. I mean, Cyanide Sin is this really cool Statue of Liberty act where, you know, she strips down and she's got all these words on her body, and it's just, you know, like it's a very political act about, you know, what it's like to be a woman in America right now. And that can really turn people off. I did oh my God. Do you remember when Kitty did that act and she was Donald Trump?
And she made out with Pence, I think.
It wasn't Pence, because gosh darn it, now I can't even remember who. I think it was Putin. I think I had a Putin mask on. And then we made out on stage in our mask. Like, burlesque can, like, we push envelopes still, but we don't push the, like, hot dogs in our hoo-ha.
It's a different kind.
It's a different kind of envelope we're pushing nowadays. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a great space to say things, whatever you want those to say. If you just want those things to be like classy music and sparkles, that's super rad. If you want, like, I'm revamping my Esmeralda act, because I did act Esmeralda in Disney, and I'm actually Romani. And so for a long time I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take, you know, people's like stereotype of my people and turn it around. Nobody fucking picks that up. They just see me like dry humping a blow up sheep. So I'm going to turn it around. I'm revamping the costume to like strip down to like a Romani flag and be like, no, like we're real human beings. You know, like we are actual people. We are here. There are 4 million of us in the world. Jesus Christ.
We're not a small crowd.
We're not, yeah. I mean, we're real human beings. You know, so you can make burlesque. You can say whatever you want to say with burlesque. And that's what's really cool.
As long as you're not stamping on someone else's culture while you do it.
Right. I had to add that piece into costume class, the cultural appropriation piece, because that's been a really hot topic in burlesque the last few years.
Is that because people are getting offended by it, or it's just...
Yeah, well,
I mean, you can't have somebody who's super white like me and like get up and do a Pocahontas act. You know?
And
like,
even in that, like I'm a tribal member. So on my mom's side, I'm Native. You know, I'm a Karuk member. Like I speak the language. My daughter says uchich instead of milk. You know, like I am very white passing though. Like if you just look at me, you just assume that I'm white. And so I won't even do an act. We had another person in the troupe, Misleading, who was the same tribe. And she also doesn't present as Native American. And we talked about this, about how like I would love to do, oh my God, a costume like that has our like designs and everything on it. It would be gorgeous, you know, sort of imitate regalia. But I don't ever want anyone to see that picture online somewhere and think that I'm being disrespectful to Native culture. And so I won't do it. Like, I won't do a Native themed act. You know, I won't do Pocahontas because I just don't want to be disrespectful. And some people, I mean, think about humor in general, right? Like, lowbrow humor can be really discriminatory and offensive. You know, like somebody went to a festival and won an award as a white person doing the Maid from Family Guy, did that act as like a joke on Hispanics being maids and won an award, if I remember correctly.
I don't remember if they won, but I know that they got called the heck out afterwards.
But like after they'd already performed it. And so like that's something you really have to look out for. And that's something that I bring up in costume class is just basically like, if there's something you want to rip off from another culture, like, I guarantee you are more creative than that. Like, you know, like whatever you have in your mind, like if that's low hanging fruit, don't do it, you know? Yeah. And that's really becoming more, and it's kind of, we've run into problems. I know somebody kind of wanted to do a voodoo act as a person who does not belong to a culture who practices voodoo and kind of had an attitude about being told no. Because we tell people no, you know, we have to see our acts beforehand and go over them. We had somebody who wanted to incorporate a Confederate flag in their act, not in support. She actually wanted to rip it off and stomp on it, you know, but even just that imagery, like, just not into it. So that's true. Like, you can kind of say whatever you want to say, but ... Yeah,
it's got to be hard because there's almost that censorship today. And like in some instances, it's good because you don't want to just piss people off just to piss people off, right? Totally. But then like you don't want it to go too far where it's like, okay, well, how do I like can't express this way that I'm feeling because somebody's going to get offended and then it's just going to blow up online. And it's like walking that weird line.
I mean, you can offend people in ways that are not, I'm taking your culture and just like.
Oh, I mean, there's lots of people who are super offended by Sin deep-throating across. Like.
Yeah, I can see that.
That's really offensive.
The Trump makeout. There was a whole group that were like
on a VIP table, front row. They were a bunch of dudes from McKinleyville, and they were
not happy.
Not having it. Yeah, they were not. But so there is some of that. Like, I don't think I've gone to a burlesque show and not seen something salacious. Not necessarily political, but, you know, something that kind of bends norms. And that's part of the art, you know, that's part of the... Like, I mean, even like that Dexter act we were talking about, like, I'm sure there were people who came to a February show, assuming it would be Valentine's Day, and did not expect to see
what a wake-up call.
Chopping a body into pieces and throwing the pieces into buckets. So, yeah. But I don't know. I feel like people in general are just a little more conscious anyways. I mean, you don't want to gatekeep or, like, stifle people's creativity, but there's some things that you're just like... No, like the audience didn't consent to seeing that. Let's not. And that's a big thing. You know, consent isn't just sexy, it's mandatory. You know, we got to keep in mind, like, we're all trying to exist and enjoy things.